Hi, in this video we will be discussing the Layout tab in Microsoft Office as it is already clicked on. You should have a copy of these lecture notes provided to you, so go ahead and open that up and we will be going through them as the video goes on. Don't forget to pause the video throughout to try the things that I'm doing rather than just watching. And let's go ahead and get started. In the Page Layout tab, there are just a few buttons to cover that will be useful. So starting on the left, margins. A lot of these are pretty self-explanatory. So this document already has narrow margins, which would be 1/2 inch on each side and along the tops. But normal margins would be 1 inch. I usually choose narrow to fit more stuff on a page, but that's up to you. And you can make your margins customized. We already talked about in the ruler you can even customize the margins using this gray area right here. I wouldn't recommend anything less than 1/2 inch because a lot of printers won't go less than about 1/2 inch or 0.4 inches. The next button is the orientation. You can change it from portrait to landscape. If I zoom out, you can see the difference. This is landscape. This is portrait. One of the things I want to cover is how do you make one page landscape and the other page is portrait. Okay, so we'll do that in just a minute. The next button is the size. So depending on what size paper you're going to print on, you can choose it. Here, notice there's no 11 by 17, which is another common size maybe. You can pick a different paper size and customize it down here. Okay, let's look at the columns and the breaks kind of at the same time. So down here we have a picture that has 3 columns in it, and I want to basically do the same thing with these words. It's the same words copied over, but I want to make 3 columns out of it. So one of the things to know is if I just clicked on columns and turned it into 3 columns, the entire document becomes 3 columns. So undo that. So what you want to do is, the easiest way to do it is to highlight these words and then choose the 3 columns. And only those words, only that section will be in 3 columns. Now, if you go to the Home tab, there's a little button right here. It's called Show Hide. If you click on it, it's going to show you some hidden text, some hidden language here. And right here, you'll see this word section break, continuous. And so what Microsoft Word just did was when you highlighted these words a minute ago and created 3 columns, it had to break the document up into separate sections. And so you could have put those sections in manually, but which we'll do in a minute with the landscape and portrait. But let me show you how that works. So let me shut this button off. If you ever see all these little backward P buttons, paragraph looking symbols, you can just click this paragraph button here and shut it off. So let me undo. Okay, and we're back to where we were. You'll notice now if I turn on my paragraphs button, there's no section break. So if I wanted to do this manually, in the Layout tab, I can go to Breaks, and there's a whole bunch of breaks in here. We'll go over some of these. There's this one right here that says Continuous Break. So if we press Continuous Break, you'll notice nothing happened. However, if I turn on that Paragraphs button, you'll see there's little dots over here, meaning there's a break in the document. Well, I would need to put another break down below it. Well, let's just click somewhere down below this continuous break and then go to 3 columns. And you'll notice everything after the section break is in 3 columns now. Everything before it is not. And that's because there's a break in the paper, so it only does the 3 columns within the section you were clicked in. So if I want to only have this section have 3 columns, again, you can highlight it and just do it, and it will put in these continuous breaks. Or you can put in a continuous break before and after, and now you will click inside the 2 breaks and change it to 3 columns. Now I bring that up because it is easier just to highlight all of the words and make them 3 columns, but there are times when you need to use these continuous breaks, which we will do in just a second. Okay, the next thing, very important here, is it says cars I have, 1998 Ford Focus, 2004 Silverado, and then cars I want. So we want this line to go into the next column. So normally people will just do this. They'll put their cursor and press enter. And then you'll notice that it's still not lined up the way it should be because this Corvette is over here. And so we somehow got to put this back over on the other side. And then you might say, okay, press enter, but it's not working the way you want. So the rule is you never want to press enter to get these lines onto the next column. So for instance, if I pressed enter right here, and then later on I added another car that I have, you'll notice the other columns got moved over as well. So that's not what you want to do. What you want to use is, again, in the Layout tab, under Breaks, is a column break. So go ahead and you have to click at the end. Oh, let me delete my... So this was the original. I put my cursor where I want the next column, the words after this to appear on the next column, and choose column break. Okay, so now if I type here, I could type as many things as I want, and it's not going to affect the next column. Okay, and then I will put my cursor before this word people and do another column break. And so now you have 3 columns that are independent of each other. You can add stuff to each column and it won't affect the next page or the next column. So again, this is important because if you add something to one of these lists, it won't move the other column over. If we open up that paragraph button tool, you'll see these column breaks. You'll see these words column break after each. So typically you want the column break to be directly after the letter, so that way there's not an extra space. So if you want to get rid of a column break, it's hard to see when it's invisible, the breaks. So I usually turn them on just to see where they are, because we might have this column break. If we press enter a few times, it might be way down here. So you can go to the beginning of this and press delete, and it will get rid of column breaks. So, oops. Okay. The same thing goes for page breaks. If you click on right before the word if, and you want that to appear on the next page, the last thing you want to do is press enter a bunch of times. Please don't do this. This is a very bad habit. If I kept pressing enter and it appears on the next page, then you'd think, oh, I got the job done. But again, if you come up here and start typing anything in here, notice it's pushing the next page down. They're still kind of linked together. Because you see, if I turn the paragraph button, all of these carriage returns are shown. So we don't want to do it that way. So I'm going to undo Okay, and if you want something to appear on the next page, please use a page break. A page break. So now you'll see these words appear on the next page, and now I can type in anything I want here, and it won't. Oops. It won't affect the next page. Let me go here. All the way down, and this is still at the top. So the reason you use breaks is so that way each section will be separate from, independent from each other, so they don't get affected by each other if you change something. And this page break, again, you can see the page break if you turn on that little show hide button. So here's the page break right there. That's where I put it. So if I go back in the layout tab, we've covered 3 breaks: the page break, the column break, and the continuous break. There are other breaks, but they will be kind of more talked about in the other tabs. They're wrapped into other aspects of the ribbon, so we'll save those for later. So as a last example, I want to use my breaks so that way one page is landscape and another page is portrait and another page is landscape. So for instance, this page right here with the amazing cake, I want to make this page landscape. So what do? Well, we need to put a continuous break at the beginning of the page. We need to put another continuous break at the end of the page. And then click somewhere in the middle and change the orientation to landscape. So you can see right now I have 2 pages that are landscape, and I was only supposed to have 1 page that was landscaped. And that's because when you converted it to landscape, it took up more room. And so all of this information was on the first page, but now it takes up 2 pages because you made it landscape. But you'll notice it didn't affect, see, this other page is still in portrait. So this is how you can convert. If you have different sections of a document and you want them to have different formats or looks to them, you need to put in these continuous breaks. This includes for columns or page breaks, and we're going to see the same thing for headers and footers in a little while. There are a few other buttons that I haven't talked about in here, but some of these, position and wrap text, some of these will be covered in other videos in the picture tools format video, so I'm going to save those. Some of these buttons are in more than one place, so that's why I'm not going to cover every button. So for instance, the Insert tab has a page break button. That page break button is the same button as this page break button. So that is it for this video. If you haven't already, go ahead and pause the video, try to do some of these things yourself, and good luck. Thanks.